Hello, everyone. Welcome to Business Performance USA webinar series. And we have today with us Victor Dominguez. He will be talking about Exponential Marketing Series. This is a new series. This is part one, Authentic Relationships and Marketing. I'm Cynthia Stewart, and I'll be your host today. I'm managing partner for Evermore Services. And your presenter, as I said earlier, is Victor Dominguez. Victor has an extensive background in marketing and communications. He's really quite an expert. You might notice today that he has a very special graphic presentation, which is his own rendering, so he's quite the genius at that. Victor has a long career but with major companies such as CB Richard Ellis as well as JP Morgan, and help bring CB Richard Ellis with his team to number one in the world, the number one known real estate company in the world. So listen up today and enjoy your time with us. We want to make sure that you make this worth your hour. So be sure to ask questions using the chat feature. And if you have any specific questions about your situation in your workplace, just give him an email, victor@businessperformanceusa.org. Also, if you go out to businessperformanceusa.org, you can actually download this tremendous infographic at businessperformanceusa.org/authentic. So, Victor, we welcome you today and we look forward to hearing from you. And I'm going to switch the screen over to you. Welcome.
Thank you, Cynthia. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate that introduction. Always good to be with you and with our good folks, the members. I'm switching over to my screen right now, and you should be able to see the title slide. And we're going to jump into it. Again, thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here with Business Performance USA and our members and my partners, of course. Cynthia Stewart is one of our partners. Today we're going to be talking about authentic marketing, if you will, and we're going to cover some of these topics here so that you're going to leave this webinar with an understanding of these 5 bullet points. We want you to understand how to relate to today's customers. Relation being the root word of relations, being able to relate to another individual is the foundation of forming a relationship with that individual. And of course, you need to have a relationship on some level with your customer. It doesn't have to be hyper personal, but you have to be able to relate, meaning finding common points or nexus points. We're going to talk about managing customers' attitudes, and this isn't just about bad attitudes or good attitudes. It's an attitude or attributes, if you will, the attributes of your products and services relating to customers and how they drive behaviors. Next, we're going to be talking about demonstrating empathy, which is the key to connectivity these days. It really always has been in business, but empathy is a major driver in the psyche of our society today and with consumers, and we're going to be talking about that. We'll be rounding into 4 steps for gaining customer access. These are both selling tools and relationship tools, frankly. But you need access to your customers. You need to be able to have a dialogue with them. And following these 4 steps we'll talk about, it's going to help you with that. Lastly, we're going to talk about evolving the customer relations to earn customer lifetime value. It's not just enough, of course, to acquire a customer, but of course you want to maintain the relationship with the customer and fully develop their lifetime value for them and for your business as well, of course. So core to this is going to be an infographic. This infographic is available on BPUSA or businessperformanceusa.org/authentic. This is rather long but substantive infographic, and it's available for you, and it will be the core of our conversation today. So we can make this available to you for email as well. Again, if you have any questions, please, by all means, just simply email me, victor@businessperformanceusa.org. Now, the reason we encourage that is because that is the essence of our purpose here with Business Performance USA. We exist to help businesses grow, prosper, and their employees prosper as well. So we make ourselves available to you to answer questions, to brainstorm, and to dialogue with how to improve your business, or also how to improve your career if you're not a business owner. So let's get into it. Let's talk about, let me enlarge this for you, if I may. Let's talk about authentic relationships and marketing. So why be authentic in the first place? What's the key to that? Well, it's my premise, and it's not just mine. Simon Sinek said this as well too in his own words, but it's I believe and others believe that people buy people before they buy products. In other words, they need to buy into you. Why do what you do? And that's how you start to be authentic in the marketplace. Now, your people in your company need to be authentic as well. Of course, they need to be authentic with each other in your workplace so that they can collaborate, they can share knowledge, they can conduct a supplier-customer type of relationship even within the workplace. But certainly, when your staff reaches out into the marketplace, they must be authentic in terms of who they are, how they speak, and what they speak of. There's plenty of positive examples of being authentic, and there's unfortunately some tragic examples as well. For instance, you could Google Twitter disasters, and you're going to get some amazing stories how companies have really messed up in the social media sphere, and by being inauthentic. One tragic example I referred to comes out of the UK actually. Company was Celeb Boutique, and they're promoting Kim Kardashian. So right off the bat, in my humble opinion, we might question that we have some problems with authenticity right there. But putting that social commentary aside, um, this workers or a worker at Celeb Boutique was monitoring Twitter, as you should do as well, setting up a listening posts for the social media so that you can understand what customers are talking about. What customers were talking about is Aurora, Colorado. And the reason they were talking about that is the tragic event of the shootings and, in fact, massacre during the Batman movie. And that's why Aurora, Colorado was trending. And somebody without any shred of common decency or care or a desire to be authentic in the marketplace tweeted out, quote, Aurora, Colorado is trending. It must be because of the Kim Kardashian dress. Buy it now. I mean, it's complete lack of connectivity with the marketplace. And it was an appalling approach. So uh, authenticity works, but it can work against you if you're not sincere about it. But what's fascinating here is really the origin of this, and our good colleague, Dr. Jeff Stewart, helped me with this. He's a brilliant linguistic individual, and he really understands words, and he helped me connect uh, the notion that authentic, author, and authority are really derived from the same root words. And you have to be careful with the word authority here because certainly the Gen Ys, the millennials, and really everyone now is somewhat suspect of authority. But you can't really run away from that. You should, in fact, turn it into your advantage. The way to do this is to be authentic with your customers by authoring inspiring stories and assert your authority in what it means to be genuinely human. It's okay to be an authority and authoritative, but on a human scale, keep it real. Don't do what they did in regards to Aurora, Colorado. So this is the essence of authentic relationships and marketing. It sets the tone of how you can be authentic with your customers. Let's scroll down here, and this is in the infographic, if you will. So here we have a millennial, if you will, quintessential for what we often look at and track in terms of consumers. But the reason we do that isn't just because it's the classic consumer archetype profile. Millennials and Gen Yers and others have really set the tone which others follow. The B2C world is dramatically influenced the B2B world. So if you just work from business to business, don't mistake the fact that social trends are affecting your business as well. So you really important to stay up on top of consumer trends, millennials and the like. And that's why we've used this reference here. So we're going to talk about customer attitudes, if you will. And it's first best to know what are attitudes. So one might say that an attitude is a learned predisposition to behave considerably or in a considerably favorable or unfavorable manner with a given respect to an object. So we're going to depart from where you might typically think in terms of attitudes, being that person has a bad attitude and an emotional expression, if you will. We're going to keep this objective oriented rather than subjective to a degree, so that you can look at your company's products and services in an objective light and understand the attributes of your company. And that's where we get again to the key words. Attitude, attributes, what are the attributes of your company? And that's what we're discussing here. So these objects, if you will, in terms of how you want to look at your company, they may include specific marketing-related concepts such as product or product category. Those are actually two slightly different things. Product may be soap. Product category would be the type of soap. The attitude of an object, this object may also be, of course, your brand, your service, product use. It could get into soft issues such as possessions, things people covet, no commentary there socially. Causes and issues certainly are objects, and we can look at the attributes of those objects as well. For instance, a very simple approach, you might look at conducting attitude research on a specific topic such as a consumer attitude towards 3 major brands of cell phones. So what are the consumer attitudes, or what do they attribute to your products, is how we want you to start looking at your company in this example. Over here we have a lot of information. We're going to start on the left with 4 basic functions in terms of customer attitude or attributes. The first utilitarian function here. This is, does it work? For instance, Lysol uses a utilitarian appeal. It cleans, it disinfects, it's effective and efficient. Now, Lysol also overlaps a little bit, and this is where it gets a little blurred because no one product or company exists solely within these functions. There's always overlap. Lysol will probably overlap, in fact does, into the value appeal or value expressive appeal in terms of protection. Sanitize, keep your home environment clean for your family, your children, your friends, your neighbors. That moves from utilitarian into value expressive. The ego defensive function is an interesting name. That basically means products and services that will protect and support, enhance your ego. Clairol, for instance, hair coloring products, uses an ego defensive appeal. Obviously, you want to look your best. Having gray roots doesn't support one's ego and personification of who they are. So that's clearly into the ego defensive approach. But they also overlap into their tagline, nice and easy. That's actually, you can think of that as a value expressive function. Nice and easy. Nice, great, you want that result. And easy, everyone wants easy. That's a value. Easy, and we'll be talking about this more, is the value these days. Everyone wants it easy. The value expressive function could be very simple, and it can show up in surprising areas. For instance, Prestone uses Prestone antifreeze. It's a very straightforward product, but it uses a value expressive appeal, for instance, to get the kids to school on time. So winter is coming. You're going to start seeing Prestone ads showing up fairly soon, probably within the next 6 weeks, certainly on the East Coast. And they're going to have a utilitarian approach, but they're going to also sell that you want your car to get you where you need to go because you need to take care of your kids, you need to take care of your work. And then lastly, the knowledge function. This is for products that have a lot of technical specification to it. For instance, the snowboarder may be really interested in understanding how his clothing functions, and he wants knowledge about it. Another approach may be nutrition products. Amway uses a knowledge appeal approach for its nutrition products. The bodybuilding world is really heavy on people that want a lot of knowledge about their products and services. Sometimes people don't want knowledge. Lysol, nobody really cares, well, how the product functions. They know it functions. They may care in value terms whether it's natural or organic, but that's an overlap function. Then across the other side, you can look at criteria for casual attributions. Again, attitude, attribute, attributions, all the same thing here. So these are for classic marketing distinctiveness or differentiation. We won't spend a lot of time there because it's a classic marketing thought, and you need, of course, to understand how is your product, company, services distinct? What makes it stand out from the competition? Consistency over time is a classic marketing mantra. You need to be repetition. You need to deliver a consistent message. Geico, 15 minutes will save you 15% or more. They just hammer that message over and over and over again. Of course, they don't talk about service or other things. They talk about 15 minutes. That's what they push. Consistency over modality. This could be simply thought of as brand as well if you want, but modality is also thought of as a particular mode in which something exists or is experienced or expressed. So be consistent with it. But what's you have to learn now with consistency over modality is a flexible modality. You need to be able to communicate through traditional and new digital channels as well, meaning this snowboarder here may certainly he's going to be online. He's going to visit the Burton Snowboard site. This individual will be using social media with whom you can connect on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and he may receive, if he's willing, text messages from you, emails from you, and so on. So the modality is highly diverse, and you need to have a consistent message over all that. So the consistent, even though the modality changes or the mode of communication changes, what has to be consistent is, of course, the message and the tonality of that message. That is essential, and that takes a lot of work, but that's something probably every company has to work on. Last is consensus. Consensus is considered a criteria for casual attributions because, hey, everybody's doing it. It's popular. So one way to leverage consensus in your favor is, for instance, to use social media comments. Yelp does this all the time, and it can really help companies, but sometimes hurt companies as well. But in your emails, in your communications, demonstrate a consensus or a testimony, if you will. 65% of the people use our products and are satisfied type of thing. So when there's a mass appeal and a mass push for your product and services, you want to talk about that and promote it. Lastly, we're going to talk about a theory. We call it the elaboration likelihood model. And this is, we call it a theory because in marketing, frankly, nothing is ever really proven until you prove it yourself. But this suggests that a person's level of involvement with your company as he processes your message is critical to determining which route to persuasion will likely be most effective. That's a lot of words in a, with a lot of information. Bottom line is this snowboarder here remotely aware of your company? Is he deeply connected to your company? Columbia Clothing makes some great clothing. They're probably very connected and understand the utilitarian value of that. And they want to dive into the knowledge function of how those garments are made. The snowboarder's pants have to be absolutely watertight, particularly on the keister. For any snowboarder, they know why that's the case. But this suggests that a great way to connect with this snowboarder is through mobile devices, for instance. And a classic pattern would be the snowboarder videotapes a 1-minute shot of he and his buddies going down a chute, post that to YouTube. Columbia or Burton or others see that and want to share that from his social site on their site, and they want to. So it's the reciprocal sharing of media, and that's creating connectivity and attributes. So let me think. I think we have a question here, Cynthia. So would you be kind enough to fire up that question? It's a poll question for us.
Sure thing, Victor. Um, I have a question. A couple enters the real estate office. Is that the one?
That's correct.
Okay, here we go. I'm launching the poll now.
Okay, so this is a divergent question. We're throwing in real estate out of the blue, but I'm trying to set up your understanding of how to apply this. So a couple enters a real estate office with a negative attitude about a realtor. Has this couple likely worked with the realtor before? Yes or no? Uh, the key here is that they walk in already with a negative attitude. And remember that attitudes are learned, okay? A learned predisposition based on history or hearsay or attitudes. And Cynthia, I'll stop talking because perhaps you have some feedback by now.
Yes, we do. We have about half the crowd that's voted. And I just wanted to make a note that you may be seeing not the whole phrase, so it did get cut off. Has this couple likely worked with a realtor before? And we're looking for, all right, there we go. Victor, we have 100%, and they all voted yes.
Okay, well, that's not exactly a difficult question, but that's good that you're on board with that. We have a second poll question which follows up on this. So why don't we just cue that up, Cynthia, if you will be so kind.
Very good. I'm doing that now. That poll is which attitude functions will likely resonate positively with this couple? So, keeping in mind what Victor just talked about with regard to the utilitarian or the ego defensive, or would it be value expressive and knowledge function? Which of these, A or B, do you select?
Thanks,
Okay, we
Cynthia.
just need a couple more seconds. All right, 100% have voted on A, utilitarian and the ego defensive, Victor.
Okay, well, that's good. That's actually not the question. That's 100% not right according to this logic here, but you're not wrong because frankly, like we talked about, all of these functions are really correct. You know, we've got, you know, utilitarian, ego defensive, value expressive, knowledge function. The reason I'm posing this question is to, if one were a realtor or an office manager, how might they diffuse this situation? So a realtor has to manage all of these functions in essence. Utilitarian or utility certainly applies because they have 3 kids, they want a 4-bedroom house. That's utility. Ego certainly applies um, as well, but where you really start connecting with this couple is through value expression, really understanding the value of their lifestyle. And that's an entire sequencing question to really to understand how they interact with each other, the level of closeness, the level of privacy, um, the level of social gathering that takes place. What does this couple really value in their life is really where you want to hone in on. Now, of course, utilitarian, you need the facts, ma'am, and let's just go through those. But that's not the basis of a true relationship. It's really understanding the value and then the knowledge function, which you can share back in return. The couple is expressing the value, but you can bring knowledge into the forefront. And with your knowledge of the neighborhood, the knowledge of the schools, the knowledge of the shopping, the knowledge of the work opportunities nearby, that's a kind of exchange which is going to develop a deeper relationship. So A is correct, but B is a better expression or better path, if you will, to creating an authentic relationship with this couple. So that's the logic. In the sense, there's no wrong answer, but there's sometimes better answers if your goal is to create a deep relationship. Okay, Cynthia, we're going to move on. And are you seeing my screen on customer empathy?
We are.
Excellent. So we want to talk about customer empathy. It's the second or third bullet we talked about earlier. The reason empathy is important because, in my opinion, it replaces the new and improved. So rather than just, hey, our product is new and recycled, or we have a new packaging, or we give you 2 more ounces, empathy is really the better way to go, because today your ideal customers want authentically inspiring relationships with your company. Now, we did talk about authority. So, however, authority without human authenticity becomes a barrier or even a turnoff to the Gen Ys and the millennials and really everyone else. And what that means is the authority without a human side of it is simply going to be a turnoff. So customers today, particularly Gen Ys and millennials, are more likely to trade on informed and inspiring empathy, which drives toward actual value creation strategies, rather than simple, value adds or pseudo custom choices. Meaning, hey, you can now get pineapple with that pizza. That's not a real inspiring value add, if you will. So we want to be able to resonate with customers on a much deeper, more personal level. So that's what these hoops are representing here. Another snowboarder is flying through them. These are the snowboarders' hoops, and we have the business professional running behind them, and not just in chase, but going through these hoops and personifying these same empathy attributes as well. So we start with altruism. Now, altruism can also be thought of reciprocal altruism, and that's giving without expecting, and that's really the essence of what giving is. But we're going to talk about how a lot of these empathetic these empathy attributes really are a two-edged sword, because while today's consumers may value people who give without expecting, sometimes they take without expecting as well, and it's a fine line. But when you look at music downloads online, a lot of people, and even my own children I had to have a discussion with, says, just because it's online doesn't mean you can take it. Yet some consumers were indignant when they were told that they have to actually pay for their music downloads. They were willing to take without giving back. So that's not what we're talking about. And understand that when we talk about customer empathy points, that sometimes there's contradictions here, but you, being the business professional, need to take the high road. So it's important to demonstrate that you have altruistic principles, that you're willing to give without expecting. And to be selfish, for instance, that's probably the wrong word to use, but Business Performance USA is an altruistic organization started by business professionals who do this for a living, but at the same time, we want to give without expecting. That's why Business Performance USA exists. Simply sponsoring your Little League team and having the plaque on the wall is giving without expecting back. Another hot button is inequality. Another way to translate this is fairness. Look for ways to connect with your customers in terms of fairness in very simple, practical matters. If you have a customer saying, hey, I shouldn't be charged for that, or look, there's a Coke on my ticket here that I didn't order and I didn't get, and you're charging me for it. That's an obvious example of what is fair. But on a bigger example, in terms of social trends, you might look at a company who excludes homosexuals, for instance. Boy Scouts is under a lot of flack for that. Apartheid back in the 80s was under a lot of flack for that, for their principles of inequality or fairness. So you have to look at your company not just in regards of what might not be fair, but you absolutely need to look at your company in terms of how you connect with what is considered fair, if you will. Underdog is another one, and frankly, there's many more than this. These are just examples. But for instance, People with a high level of empathy are typically not bullies, and they won't accept other people who are. Sports teams, people tend to root for the underdog. Occupiers versus Wall Street, classic example of the underdog. So this is a sensitivity that people have today, and how might your company connect with that and promote uh, a measure of picking people up, supporting people, educating the uneducated, economically disadvantaged individuals. That's another connection point that you may have with it. Animal rescue, for instance, is another one. There's a lot of ways here that your company can exhibit empathy in terms of supporting the underdog. The non-prejudicial is an obvious one. You don't have to look past Paula Deen, what happened to her recently, what can happen to an individual. And Paula Deen is a company. She is a corporation, make no doubt about it. She's an individual, but her corporation suffered greatly for a negative expression that made it out in the public sphere. You have to be very, very careful, first of all, what happens in your company. That's why we're showing you these. So look at these values here and look at your company first and make sure that you are on the right side of these issues, and then proactively go out into the marketplace and see how you can connect. Heroism is the last one. Classically, can you define and relate with clients who are mothers? Mothers are heroes, teachers are heroes, firefighters are heroes. Find the hero within your company or within your customers and find a way for your company to connect with them. These are the new value adds, if you will. So take a new perspective on other people's lives and find out how you connect with them. And that's empathy. It's the new and improved, if you will. We're going to move on to customer doorways. And this is what we talked about. We would begin with easy because, frankly, easy is a classic and it always exists. But if you want to gain access to customers, you should look at all of your communications and look at all your actions through the prism of these four lenses, if you will. So in marketing and in sales and relating and develop relationships with customers, use these to test yourself. Are you making it easy for customers to work with you? Easy or simple, really the same thing. Clairol, nice and easy. It's used all the time. And it doesn't seem to get old. You have to give it your own twist and define what nice and easy means or the value means, but it can be very effective for you. So even if you are making things complicated product or service, even if you are pushing a knowledge attribute, if you will, make it easy to understand, easy to relate to your company. So that's really the first door that you need to go through, and it always exists. If you want relationships, you have to be relevant to those with whom you want a relationship. Relevant means that you're on the same terms, that you understand their situations, and that's, again, empathy. Relevant is that you have a product or service that you need. Ask yourself, how are you in fact being relevant with the times, which is what we're really talking about today. Ask if your product or services is relevant to your customers' needs and requirements, and test yourself. Are you using even the same language? If there's a language barrier, it's something that you need to correct. If your communications aren't timely and relevant, then you need to correct that too. So in terms of communications, relevant is absolutely imperative. The next door you got to jump through is invaluable. And this is where, with every connection point, we've talked about in the past of customer experience connectivity and connection points, try and add some added measure of valuable or being invaluable. In B2B, we do this with every conversation we have with clients and prospects. My partners and myself ask them some basic questions, and we offer tips and tricks. We know that if every time we engage our clientele that we can offer some measure of value, some advice, some market insight, or let them brainstorm something with us, that we're being invaluable. Being invaluable means you have permanent access to your customer base. Being invaluable means that you could simply share social media. It doesn't have to be anything heady or strong. It can just be that you deliver a connection point, such as uh, sharing back and forth snowboarding videos with our example earlier. That's invaluable to that individual because he now has something he can share on a social media site. Priority is the last one, and it's always relevant. I consider it the most important one. And you have to really understand what your clientele priorities are, because the world is far too busy for anyone to get to the second list. You know, you've got priorities means I absolutely have to get this done today. It's a burning issue. Then you've got your want to do's, your need to do's, your wish to do's, your bucket lists, whatever it is. But unfortunately, people don't have priorities or time to get to second tier priorities, I should say. So how do you know what priorities are? How do you know what is invaluable? How do you know how to be relevant? All of these things, you simply ask. You have to have a dialogue with customers, and you have to record that information. So the best place to have this dialogue is at the front line, wherever your connection takes place. And if we look at that snowboarder again and earlier, don't underestimate the value of very basic employee roles that can have a dramatic impact. So who are the people that that snowboarder is likely to have interactions with? Well, when he shows up to at a ski resort, ironically, the parking attendant, the lift operator, the person at the burger counter taking orders, possibly the snow ski patrol. These are all people that that individual would have interactions with, and those are opportunities for them to deliver messages and helpful tips and tricks. We work with a bank, for instance, and we've trained all of the tellers to become proficient on a number of categories. Some of them are fraud protection and identity theft. Every time they talk to a customer, they give them a little tip and trick how to protect identity online and with the bank accounts and whatnot. That's a connection point that's being invaluable, that's relevant to the transaction. They make it easy to work with them. So look at your frontline personnel, look at your connection points, and run this exercise with them and train them, give them the kind of knowledge they can share with customers that can make that customer's day helpful. A parking attendant is completely underutilized. They can give those customers tips and tricks saying, hey, chair 12 is down, but it's going to be open at 12, or there's fresh powder on the backside, or there's rocks in the trees on this slope. I mean, it would be remarkable how you can start establishing connections by empowering your front line. So use these 4 words, test your company first, and then use these to, again, expand out into the front line, that is. So we're coming up on the last section here. This is customer evolution. So we've gone through customer attributes, customer doorways, and now we're at customer evolution. These are stages, if you will, of how the client relationship changes and what you can do to improve that and grow that and do what we just talked about. Make it easier, provide value every time you interact with them, understand their top priorities. So, number 1, we're going to talk about, let's get the categories straight here, first of all. We're going to talk about suspects, prospects, customers, repeat customers, and clients and advocates. There's a whole progression of words. A suspect is somebody that doesn't know your company, isn't aware of you. You think they may be a prospective customer, but who knows yet? You want to turn a suspect into a prospect, you have to be able to answer the question, what can you do for me? So all the questions in italic font there are the questions that customers will ask, not necessarily outright, but they will ask, at least in their own head. They're going to be looking at you thinking, I don't know, what can you do for me? So this is a very straightforward prospect, pardon the pun here. So you want this person to at least turn into a prospect, somebody that has initiated some level of connectivity or connection with your company, and you need to be able to answer them what they can do for you. So online is typically where this is going to take place these days. You should have some measure of web analytics tools, at least Google Analytics, so you can understand who is coming to your site, what pages they're going to, how long they're spending on those pages. You should have dynamic content on there, because that's where customers are first converting into prospects. As we all know, customers are empowered with a lot of knowledge and information these days. They're going to learn about you before you even have the opportunity to connect with them. They'll learn online, they'll learn through testimonials, they'll learn through sharing, like we talked about, consensus. They'll start to pick up what they attribute to your company or your product or service attributes before they even you have a chance to interact with them. So be prepared for that. Your first contact is going to already be with an informed customer that has already started to form an opinion. This is where we get into number 2. Prospect turns into a customer. A prospect, again, is somebody who has had at least some measure of verifiable connectivity with your customer, and what you're trying to do now is to convert to a sale. But the critical question the customer is asking is, why should I trust you? Trust is a big deal. It is the essence of relationships. One cannot earn trust without being authentic. That's why the theme of this webinar is authenticity. So trust here is the issue. And in my opinion, trust really isn't even the first issue. Respect is the first issue. When you demonstrate respect without expecting anything back, just like we talked about earlier, the reciprocal altruism. Just show respect first, show respect through having empathy, and that is the first step towards having trust. Respect comes first, and by giving it, and then it's earned, and it's almost instantaneously that respect and trust come together at the same time. But you have to show that the customer can trust you. That's critical to the conversion process. Third, customer to repeat customer. This is critical, absolutely hyper critical for any long-term sustainable business that's going to turn into a true business asset. Acquiring customer is a very difficult thing. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy. That first transaction is probably, frankly, not even profitable. I mean, it may be, but the key is this next transaction and the next and the next. So repeat customers is really what you want and must focus on. And interestingly enough, not enough companies are focused on this whatsoever. They're very focused on the sale, the transaction, and they forget about that customer. They forget to collect data for that customer. They forget to ask questions to create connectivity and touch points so they can understand how this person is a hero, or what this person empathy points are, or they an animal lover, and so on and so on. At that first transaction, number 2 is where you start paving the road for number 3. You're not going to really obtain number 3 unless you can answer the question, who's looking out for me? And this is critical to have people dedicated in your company who are in fact looking out for that person. Likely be the front line, the connection point, and that is the person who has to say, whatever it is, it's if that person has made an error in their purchase, that person has to look out for them. If that person needs somebody to ask a question to, a helpful tip and trick, you're selling cell phones, it's take the time to actually instruct them on how to use a cell phone, how to use your product or services. And it should be a dedicated person. If you have the opportunity, create a relationship, but a lot of companies don't have that. If they're an e-commerce type company, they don't have that connectivity in a personal relationship. But you should be defining roles and responsibilities within your company of the customer advocate at this point, if you will. So that moves us into number 4. customer to client, don't you know me by now? This is another area where failure typically takes place because companies aren't taking the time to gather information about that customer, to putting that information in a repository where other people can access it. And that's critical. That's essentially what a CRM system is, customer relationship management, CRM. It's all the same thing. And this is where you need to really start understanding who this customer is. A huge mistake, for instance, is uh, if you have somebody going online and they have to input information twice, or they're on a phone call and they're transferred to something, they ask you for the same information, or you've been going to a restaurant and you want your steak a certain way and they bring it, rare and you want it well. Uh, Not knowing your customer is an insult to the relationship. You can't be authentic in your relationships if you don't know who you're dealing with. So think of any relationship you've had that's very important to you, and the significant other side of it says, I didn't know about, I didn't know you like it that way. It's a huge mistake. You have to create the type of protocol and infrastructures for knowing who your customers are and sharing that information so that that touch point is consistent across the board. Lastly, client to advocate. This is a rarefied world, frankly. A brand advocate is somebody that is going to actively sell for your company. They're the ones that build the consensus. They're the ones that are going to set attitudes for others before you have the opportunity to do so. So, an important question, and there's more questions, by the way, but an important question the customer will ask is, what have you done for me lately? So this is the stage where you have to be highly proactive in your relationship. You have to be anticipating what their needs are and are going to be. It could be a cost-saving measure. Hey, Mrs. Customer, Mr. Client, we found a way to save you some money, or we have a service that we think will benefit you, or last time we talked, we understood that you had this problem. We think we have an answer for you. So be proactive. Don't wait for the client to reveal a problem or ask for more. Be proactive in the relationship and take the lead on providing more value for them. Take the lead on making connections with their empathy points. Now, I understand that we had one more poll question, Cynthia, but I believe I erred in inserting that because what I've seen is there is no more poll questions. Is that correct?
There's no more poll questions. I just sent you a
All right.
question from the audience as well that we can take. Would you like to just say the poll question verbally? Well, it's difficult to
Well,
vote.
I can run questions
So,
straight from the audience. Let's just I encourage audience questions. That's more fun, and that's why we also encourage you to contact us later and ask us questions in. But let's go with the moment, and let's go with the question that surfaced. Do you want to read it, or why don't you read it?
all right. Regarding that customer empathy slide, in practical terms, are you saying that the expressions or moments of truth from a company should incorporate these values?
Yes, I am. The short answer is yes. So in terms of moments of truth, a company should express these values. Well, a moment of truth can occur in a number of ways. It could be something positive or something negative. Some of the best moments of truth and some of the best customer experiences is actually when a negative experience took place and the company recognized it immediately and proactively did something about it. It's sort of what have you done for me lately, but it's being honest, it's being fair, it's being um, you know exactly what you would want out of a relationship, that somebody is accountable and transparent on issues. So uh, actually problems are, and Cynthia, you know this quite well, problems are great opportunities for growth and expansion. So always take moments of truth, and express what's of value, what's important to you at that point in time, and make sure that you do the right thing. So it should always be foremost, but that takes conditioning, and it's not likely that you are going to be able to have an honest expression at a moment of truth if your entire company isn't that way. Because if people aren't being honest with themselves internally, if they're not accountable to each other, if they're not transparent in their actions, they won't necessarily be conditioned to treat the customer that way. So all of these values have to begin internally. So did
Victor?
I answer the question, do you think? Yep.
I think so. Here's what I think. I was really interested in that customer empathy slide because you basically talked about those values. And what's interesting is you're talking about them from perhaps somewhat the media and what's going on in the media, what happens in the media, and that kind of thing. So it's really from the customer's perspective. And I want to line up those values, for the company. In other words, how is the company stating their values in terms of the customer's values, if you know what I mean? And I'm not sure that always connects. So I found this really an interesting slide in thinking about these are ways that these are things that customers value, and how well is the company recognizing that? How well are they stating those values for the company so that in each interaction with the customer and in each tweet that they do, in each social media post that they have, in each blog that they do, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on in all the ways that they can interact with their customer. Are they making sure that they're standing true in their values? So I thought this was a really interesting slide.
Well, thank you, Cynthia. This can be expressed in a number of ways. It's expressed with companies like Tom's Shoes. For every pair of shoes you buy, they give one away to folks in developing countries that need shoes desperately. The Red program, the Starbucks, and others, X percentage of your purchase goes towards fighting this or curing that. Those type of alliances are obvious ways to promote, but there's more subtle ways as well, and those surface in personal interactions and dialogue. And again, this is why the frontline personnel is so important. Or in replace of that, responding and monitoring social media when somebody expresses, hey, I just got a rescue dog. A dog food company monitoring social media says, wow, that's great. Here's a month's supply of dog food for you. That's on a very personal level. And so, or it's just simply honestly, something as simple as smiling at somebody in a restaurant, and they drop their napkin and the waiter bends over and picks it up for them or gives them a new napkin. It's very subtle ways, and those are all customer service ways, but that's showing that you care. And there's numerous ways to show that one cares. And without caring, your business isn't going to last long. And that's my point here.
And Victor, give me a minute. We do have another question.
So I think we have wrapped this up, Cynthia. Oh,
Let me make sure I can read the whole question. So the question is, will empathy with customers reflect the practice of empathy inside your own organization?
well, it has to, I believe. I don't believe you can genuinely, and that's the key word here, genuine. You can't be genuinely human. You can't be genuinely authentic if it's a switch that you just flip on and off. It has to be intuitive and ingrained, and it's frankly something you should profile for when you hire. And it's the torch you should light within your company and maintain. And when look, let's face it, within companies, there are all kinds of situations where people are not demonstrating a measure of empathy. Just take a very simple, hey, I made a mistake. You know, when people make mistakes and are afraid to go and tell their boss about it, that's because that boss uh, does not exhibit a measure of empathy, which creates trust and allows that employee to say, hey, I made a mistake. Will you help me fix it? It's a very small thing, but it's a very important issue. So I think it absolutely has to begin internally, and then it can be translated outwardly in just a very natural manner, and that's how you become genuine. You can't fake these things. And if you try, you're going to get caught. And just go, you know, Google Twitter disasters, and you read all kinds of examples of how people get caught being inauthentic.
Thanks, Victor. And we actually have one more question and then
So
we'll
we are
wrap it
at
up.
10:55. Oh, okay.
The question is, so does empathy always have to be expressed, or is it enough in some cases just to read the situation correctly?
Well, the latter is certainly true. It is sometimes just enough to be to read the situation correctly, because the attributes we're talking about are not necessarily outwardly manifested. One doesn't know what one attributes to a company, or what the situation is. These are very deep-seated feelings and emotions, and they may not surface. So there's a lot of subtle communication here. Empathy can be expressed in body language. It can be expressed in a smile, in a helping hand. Just the act of picking up, giving a customer a new napkin or fork that dropped on the floor and no words exchanged is a measure of empathy. So it's a very subtle world, and you have to be genuine in it, because you don't know what attributes that customer is bringing into the marketplace, bringing into your business, that have already been predestined, preordained. So um, it's a very subtle and intuitive and often unconscious expression of how one is empathetic towards others.
Thank you for that, Victor. I guess at this point we're almost top of the hour, so it's time to go ahead and finish out our webinar for today. I want to thank those of you who have attended our webinar today. We always look forward to having you with us and asking those good questions and taking our polls. And Victor will continue his exponential marketing series next month with processing the earned relationship. We look forward to that. And also, we do have follow up from our other presenters next week, Change Leadership from Dr. Jeff Stewart, and then we're on to variance is evil. That's something that we'll be talking about. That should be a little bit controversial. Also, remember that we are taping these webinars and they're going to be available on YouTube. You can go out there to Business Performance BP USA org is or businessperformanceusa.org on YouTube and watch for these webinars. We hope that you will come back with us next week, and we look forward to hosting you. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye bye.